Good morning and welcome everyone to yet another Nextview online event. Today we're going to talk about the future of sales, and I'm again very excited to introduce our speakers for today's session. Online we have Mark Schmidt. On my left side we have Christiaan Koene of Salesforce, and on my right side I have Niek Bachman. So welcome all.
Thank you.
For the audience, as you know, who have recently visited our previous webinars, if you have any questions that you would like to propose, please fill in the chatter. I will see them here online in my on my tablet, and I will ask the participants if they can answer it. Before we start, the future of sales, a very exciting topic, of course, and before we get into the speakers, I just want to get everyone's first clue or introduction about your idea about the future of sales. So Mark, if I can ask you in one sentence, what does the future of sales mean for you?
Yeah. Thanks, Sander, and hi everybody. So future of sales for me, in one sentence, actually even in one word, would be informed. So informed, and I mean this both from the customer perspective, but also for sales teams. So, what we're going to show here on the screen real quick and diving straight into the stats, even before we have introductions, which I like this pace, is, looking at a survey that we did at Salesforce this year. And we'll share some links to some of this in the chat as the webinar goes on. But effectively, the future of sales is really happening now. Right? It's change that's happened in 2020. And as you see on this chart, 58% of sales reps expect their roles to change permanently. And I think, in my perspective, the other 42% probably are underestimating, right, the impact of the change that's already happened. So some things, of course, will go more or less back to some sort of normal, but things are changed. And on the right-hand side, you see what that means. It means an adaptation. So adapting to this change really is, customers facing unprecedented changes. The changes that salespeople have reported to us in this survey of over 5,000 salespeople shows how they're looking to adapt. And all these elements you see on the right, I won't read all through them there as everyone can read them, but effectively it means being more informed, right? Understanding the details of their customer relationships, understanding them before they're selling, the expectations of customers, understanding them even after the sale, staying in touch, and of course also changing metrics, new job responsibilities. All this means being more informed, and that means breaking down silos, not only between data systems like ERP and back office and front office systems like CRM, but also breaking down silos between departments. So different groups working together. And I think what this the pandemic and this change has shown us is this kind of massive change is possible, even on a large scale. And, before I hand it back to you, I'll mention there was another survey, this one from McKinsey that was done that showed that bigger projects bigger change and transformation projects actually have a bigger success rate in business than smaller projects. So what this shows is that this kind of massive changes we've gone through is possible to maintain and do over again into the future. And I think that's what all of those kind of big projects are going to be happening in order to make sales teams more informed, in order to keep up with these customers who themselves are becoming more informed. So that was more than a sentence, Sandra.
No problem. Very interesting. Thank you, Mark. Christiaan.
Yeah, so I think for me, at least, the future of sales is all about the buyer. And I was reading through a report of Gartner about the future of sales, stating that I think 33% of the buyers do not expect to be in contact with sales when they're buying something in a B2B environment. And looking at the millennials, it was even up to 44%. So to me, if I summarize it, it's all about a seamless customer experience, making sure that they have the best experience with you as a company, and maybe less about the product that you sell, but that experience for me is really key.
Okay. Thank you. And Niek?
Yeah, thanks. It's actually pretty much in line with you, Christian. What I think is that we're moving more to a consultative way of selling, and that all departments, and which Mark underlined as well, is that all departments from marketing to sales to service are actually doing sales together. But of course with a salesperson as a front runner. But everyone is doing sales and not just sales anymore.
Okay. So thank you for this short introduction for this very interesting and of course future changing topic. And to make it more interactive, we prepared a little bit a short poll that we want to ask you as a participant to fill in. As everything goes well, you see the poll questions coming up. So take a little bit of time and fill it in, because we're very anxious also, besides hearing from the experts now and also later on, what you think about these topics.
Yeah, definitely. And also for the paper that Mark mentioned about McKinsey, it's actually where they outline on how an approach could be in doing an enterprise-wide implementation. So that's why we're very curious to see your opinions and where you are at the moment as listeners.
So as the poll is running for the answers, just do a short introduction. Like I said, we have Mark from Salesforce, who's a digital transformation lead. We're going to talk about the trends in CRM. We have Christiaan also from Salesforce, who actually will elaborate on he as a user from Salesforce, using Salesforce and all those tools in his actual job of doing sales. And we have Niek as a practice manager from Nextview, who's going to talk about how can we help organizations actually make the transformation. So promising to be a very interesting talk. And again, if you have any additional questions, please feel free to fill in the chatter, and I will see that on the left side of my tablet to answer propose that questions to our experts. So we're getting the first responses. So on the first question, so the bigger projects tend to be more successful. We see a very large population say disagree with being more successfully. So I think the most of the people say that bigger projects don't tend to be more successful. Yeah. Any response from you? Maybe Niek, you see a lot of projects, of course.
Yeah, of course. It's an interesting aspect actually, because you can have various ways on approaching a project, of course. But what I feel is that you should always have the vision, at least, in what you want to achieve eventually, and set that as a goal instead of just doing a system implementation. So that's why I think this is an interesting approach, and I would love to catch up with people if they want to hear more about this. And of course, I will elaborate more about my opinion later on as well.
But with the people who agree or who disagree?
Both, actually.
Both. Okay. So, let's go into more detail. Maybe catch on later on about the other results of the poll. Mark, I would like to ask you, because you see a lot of trends, of course, in your and you talk to a lot of companies as your digital transformation lead. Can you elaborate more about what are the trends you see on that sales transformation or that CRM transformation?
Yeah, and I think there might be some more charts here with some more results from these Salesforce surveys to talk to these points. So the first thing I think, what Christiaan mentioned around this seamless experience, and that is definitely the expectation that a lot of customers have, whether they're consumers, whether they're customers. My specialty in Salesforce, I'm focused on the manufacturing, automotive, industrial side of the business, so more B2B. But we also see this in B2C, especially consumer packaged goods, right? That buyers expect that people understand who they are, right? And in this case, what you're seeing on the charts here, this is coming more from B2B buyers. So business buyers expecting sales reps to understand that they understand their business. They're expecting them to develop solutions rather than just pitching products. And they're expecting more trusted advisor. But the reality, or at least the perceived reality from a customer poll here, is that the sales reps are lacking the knowledge, right? That there are more interactions or more focus on products rather than solutions. And in fact, everything feels much more transactional. But if we go to the next chart, we see that indeed a lot of sales reps are making a lot of efforts in order to change. So, I mentioned my word of being informed, and what we see on the left-hand side here is from the Salesforce survey that looked at a lot of salespeople globally. And it turns out that sales reps are, in fact, really trying to leverage information from a lot of different sources so they can understand and actually advise customers and really get to this process of like insight selling. So knowing their customers and making more proactive advisory options for them. And 88% of reps say that current conditions really make that very important, to being able to anticipate the needs. And you see on the right-hand side some numbers that, back to this experience being so critical for customers. A lot of people think, well, B2B standards aren't quite as high as B2C, but you see the results here. In fact, business buyers really value an experience even more importantly than the product or services from the customer. The overall experience matters more to business buyers even than to consumers. So that's something that's hopefully eye-opening to B2B businesses out there. So, what does that mean from a Salesforce perspective, or just we could talk about general CRM or how to connect all the dots. And on the next chart, what we have is a view of this kind of experience, and you can kind of start to build this out as well by clicking through this. But effectively, these are some of the initiatives we hear quite commonly from our customers. So some initiatives that have really gained steam even during this year where everyone is doing more cost control, some projects have been invested in. I talked about this on a previous webinar here with Nextview. But what we've really seen that's happened is the top projects have increased in priority, and that goes around digital engagement. It goes around commercial excellence, initiatives around customer self-service in order to create that kind of seamless experience that Christiaan mentioned, and then also data-driven operations. So really leveraging analytics to become more and more data-driven. And if we look into the details here of what are some of the capabilities of what that means, digital engagement, we might traditionally think of that as marketing. But in fact, we mentioned before that a lot of salespeople are seeing their metrics change. In fact, a lot of marketing teams are also seeing their metrics change, their measures change, where they're not just measured on the number of leads anymore, for example, but they're actually measured on closing business. So that makes them really tied to the hip with the sales teams. And these are some of the capabilities they look at to do that. So more personalized marketing, including looking at more leading indicators from the marketplace, more AI guidance around leads and opportunities, and more targeted profile-based offers. On the commercial excellence side, where the sales teams traditionally sit, of course, that means being more informed around, in order to negotiate and do configurations and pricing. Also, though, it means being connected to the back office. So understanding more around the sales agreements and the contracts. Like you saw in one of the previous, surveys I showed, sales teams expect to know more about their customers before and after the sales. That means monitoring these agreements and contracts on an ongoing basis. And it also means, like here, this one view, what's actually going on in the market versus what was forecast. Again, this isn't just a role anymore for the back office and sales ops. The sales teams we see now are getting more engaged in this, so they understand, are our customers keeping up with their contracts? The customer self-service elements, right, around e-commerce, order or reorder, doing that very easily, ability to find status updates, engagement. The reason customer self-service is so important, even for sales, is that the more customers can do self-serve, it frees up more time for sales. Instead of answering those calls and questions from customers about, hey, where's my order? What's going on with this ticket I opened? They can get that themselves, and that creates more time for sales to do the higher touch, to do the more advisory work that the customers are expecting. And then over to the left-hand side, the data-driven operations. So that means omni-channel service, engaging with partners, retailers, distributors, and also having more analytics-driven offers back to the market, and then the cycle there repeats. The numbers you see on the left and right, this comes from another McKinsey study called the $1 trillion Opportunity in the Industrial Sector, showing if B2B businesses adopt this kind of digital transformation around these kinds of initiatives, the kind of results they can expect. Increased product revenue, less marketing cost, increased margin, and lower cost for sales and administration. So, that's part of the perspective. We talk about a number of these all the time with our customers at Salesforce about where they are on their particular journey towards this customer 360 that sits there in the middle, because it's really this customer 360 that powers all of those kind of capabilities, makes those processes more intelligent, makes the salespeople more intelligent, more informed. But of course, happy to hear from our partner Nextview on some of your experiences with your customers on any of these points. So Niek, I'm curious, you're one of those in the field dealing directly with your customers. Curious what you might be seeing.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree. Because, of course, there is nothing more weird than, for example, when you are, at least as a consumer, walking into a store while you've ordered something online and you've rang with them with the customer service because something wasn't right. And you walk in the store and they say, hey, I can't find your details because we are running different systems compared to our online environment and our offline environment. Yeah. So that's what we've done at one of our customers, for example, is that we really took a step back and started watching at what would a consumer really want and what would our customer really want before we actually started developing stuff. And from that perspective, we realized that all of these departments from sales, service, marketing, and also supported by data are interacting with each other. And that's where you can now walk into a store and say, hey, I'm Niek, and then immediately get your results out there. And they know what issues you had in the past and where you can really be helped with, and also get your next best offer in saying, hey, Niek, instead, maybe do you want this product as well? Because we see that you have used this, have a complaint about that, and now we can move you to the next step if you want this upgrade. So that's really cool. Yeah.
I have another question received. So I heard you mention, or someone heard you mention AI. So what will AI play in that role? Can you elaborate on that, Mark?
Yeah, happily. And I'm sure Christiaan, as a part of the sales team at Salesforce, knows we use AI extensively, and increasingly a lot of our customers do. I think, our AI tool, broadly we call Einstein in Salesforce, is doing over 1 billion different suggestions a day now. So, extensive, whether it's calculating lead chances of closure, suggesting opportunities, suggesting news articles, guiding marketing campaigns to suggest which time of day it makes sense to send different materials, right? All of this is getting embedded, ingrained. It's not a separate data science team that's, you have to go to and ask for this. This is automatically happening behind the scenes, and it's fully ingrained into the interfaces. So, AI, it's becoming, as it is with, so many things that we don't recognize as AI, it's becoming ingrained in our everyday processes. Yeah. And I think, one thing I would like to mention is, we do have conversations where people fear AI, right? But first of all, let me be clear, right? AI isn't always fully automated. Sometimes it's more assisted intelligence, right? So it's just providing guidance, sometimes even with an explanation about here's why it's being suggested. So it is, in a lot of cases, more pairing with people. And we still hear from, some teams who think, well, AI is going to reduce jobs. But in fact, what we've seen before the pandemic, and we expect this to continue after, hopefully, the vaccine is out and things start to return to, and the economy start to recover, is that a lot of companies are actually investing in salespeople, growing the number of salespeople, even as all these systems get more intelligent and, there's all these suggestions that are out there. So we have a futurist who works at Salesforce, Peter Schwartz. He was part of the movie Minority Report, right? So, and he had a nice quote, which was, salespeople shouldn't be worried about AI replacing them. What they should be looking at are other salespeople who are more empowered by AI than they are, right? So that's really what it means. It's really leveraging these tools in order to do our jobs, do everything a little bit better, and get more informed to meet those customer expectations.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So thank you, Mark, for this elaboration. So also this is thinking a nice bridge to actually the situation where someone works with artificial intelligence and Salesforce. So Christiaan, you as a user at Salesforce, being a sales, how do you see this changing? How do you see this future of sales influencing your day-to-day job?
Yeah, well, at least thanks, Mark. It's good to hear that I don't have to be afraid to lose my job. My job will still be there. But indeed, I've been working with Salesforce for many years. Actually, the first sales job that I had, it was almost 12 years ago. I started using Salesforce in another role. And I got my first BlackBerry, and was amazing that I was able to look up phone numbers from the CRM system, and that's only 12 years ago. And look at where we are now, where it's so easy to pick out your phone, get out all the information that you need. And there's actually a couple of things that I want to highlight, at least that help me in my day-to-day job. So in my role, I used to be out visiting customers a lot. Now it's a lot by phone, looking at how they use the Salesforce tools, but also guiding new prospects through the sales cycle to see if Salesforce is the right solution. And there's a lot of things that help me. And I want to mention 3 things actually today. So first, indeed, about AI, about Einstein, how that helps me. The second part is more around account planning, because we see an entire team forming around the customer. And the third one is more around the cadence that I have, and especially during a pandemic when I'm at home and constantly working through leads and customers, you need to have a good cadence there. So first, let's talk a little bit about Einstein, the AI part. We gather so much information around our customers, so we get not just the open opportunities, but also all the leads, all the open cases, maybe the open invoices, the contracts. There's so much data that we gather around our customers, and I put in a lot of information and data. And I'm not a data scientist. I'm a salesperson, so I want to talk to people, and that's great about AI, that it can start making sense of all that data, and it can start suggesting to me what my next step should be. So on an opportunity, if, I don't know, maybe an executive is not involved, and the system can say, it looks like there's not an executive involved, maybe you should reach out to one of the executives of the company. So there are so many smart things that a tool can do, instead of just putting in those numbers, and then you see coming to life with, I used to do also a lot of forecasting when I was a sales manager. And in the beginning, and that was 4 or 5 years ago, it started predicting my forecast. And in the beginning, we were laughing about that, like, how's the system going to predict my forecast? But then all of a sudden, when it got more information, got more data, it really became more accurate. Okay. Up until the point where we were really like, okay, Einstein, or our AI, really does a better forecast than I do, because there's so much data in our system. Comparing all those opportunities to each other, that was really cool. But
is it now then more fun to do it, or is it taking away all the things you were used to do as a sales, and now it's more?
It's a little bit of both. So it really helps me, and it takes away a lot of the things that I have to do. So it goes through all that information and comes up with some prediction, but also it's a little bit of fun. Sometimes. When a score might be a little bit low, I'm thinking, well, okay, how can I tweak the system to make sure that score becomes higher?
Gamification kind of.
A little bit. Okay. See if I'm smarter than the artificial intelligence. But I have a nice video that highlights a couple of things from the Salesforce tool about AI that I use on a daily basis. So let's have a quick look.
I will, automatically captures customer data from email and calendars, so reps can skip time-consuming tasks like data entry. Then, Einstein takes all that data and turns it into sales insights, like surfacing an alert when a meeting is requested, a competitor is mentioned, or an executive has been added to the email, so your reps can respond immediately. Einstein prioritizes the leads that are most likely to convert and recommends a follow-up action. You can even treat leads differently based on their predictive lead score, like passing the hottest leads to your best reps. It also monitors the overall health of each opportunity, identifying those that might be at risk, and recommending the next best step to close the deal. You can even put customer data right into your reps' inboxes, helping them to engage faster with more targeted conversations. And accelerate growth by visualizing, exploring, and taking action on your sales data, all with just a few clicks. Finally, Einstein guides your forecasting with AI-driven insights, taking guesswork out of the process. And you can also see a predictive forecast with the key factors highlighted, so it's easier to course correct and keep deals on track.
Yeah.
That looks promising.
Yeah, definitely.
It looks very promising.
And it's what we use ourselves as well. So it's not that's not the future of sales. This is right now, and I'm really excited to see what will the next couple of years bring, because that development is going so fast.
Is this also helping you in your daily job and workload that you have on a day-to-day basis?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So like you saw in the video, there's a lot of automatic logging, so I don't have to do that myself. It just flows into the system. And I don't have to really dive into all the information, all the data. It really brings it already together. And it can start predicting as well, servicing, for instance, a customer that might be attriting because of whatever reason, and start servicing that. And then I know, okay, I have to focus on that customer to make sure that they're happy as well. So it definitely helps me a lot. Yeah.
It's not all about Einstein. It's also, you have colleagues, of course.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the second thing that I want to highlight, is that the complexity is changing. And especially for us internal as well. And it's not just me servicing the customer. And it's a lot of my colleagues as well. And to be able to collaborate around that customer for us is very important. And back in the days, we used to have account plans that were very static. It ended up somewhere in a drawer, and nobody actually used it. And as soon as you write it, it's already outdated. But now, right within Salesforce, we have an account plan that we can gather information from Salesforce. We can build up a plan, and I can involve other colleagues as well to make sure that they look at the same information, and I can build a plan, involve them, make them responsible. And even if I want to, I can expose that to my customers as well. So account planning is also, I do have a little video with 3 small steps that you can take to really come to a live, living account plan. So let's have a look at that.
First, plan for success by building a foundational profile of your account. With Quip, you can embed a collaborative account plan template directly into your Salesforce record and easily include account information such as key contacts and opportunities. Live CRM data will flow in automatically and can be edited and updated directly from the account plan. Next, develop a winning strategy. Stay on top of your customers' needs by mapping them to your solutions. And manage important closing milestones by following big items, assigning tasks, and setting reminders within the opportunity. And finally, identify and maximize upsell and cross-sell opportunities to continue growing and expanding your accounts. When talking to customers, easily capture key conversations that signal your account could be interested in moving into additional verticals, expanding their current footprint, or wanting additional capabilities. Then bring in team members and collaborate to ensure that the account is a success.
Yeah,
nice.
Yes, and it is an amazing tool, and it really helps me focus on the right things, and not necessarily on the admin tasks, and involving colleagues immediately from the get-go, and it's that really helps me on a daily basis. Absolutely.
I think it will make you more efficient, help you focus, and
without this, it would be very difficult to have effective account plans actually. Do we still have time for the third? Sorry, Niek.
No, I was just going to say that indeed what we tend to do as well is that we really, I think you guys do it as well, is that you really work together with a client as well sometimes on seeing what they need before we actually start talking about licenses and things like that and implementation. But we really first want to understand what a client question is and how it works, and that's also what we can do with Quip, for example.
So the third thing that I wanted to mention is that the cadence is very important. I think as a salesperson, you're only a small part of the sales cycle. The buyers do already a lot of research. So you have to make sure that you get in contact with that person and you don't give up after maybe 1 or 2 times trying to call them. Because the most successful sales, they are a little bit persistent until you get that person on the line. And then you can start, if you've done the right research, you can start to become relevant. And that cadence is something that we use in Salesforce as well. It's a product called High Velocity Sales. And it really makes sure that, for instance, when a lead comes in, there's a certain cadence. So I call that person. If they don't pick up, what do I have to do then? Call again in 2 hours. If they don't pick up again, I can leave a voicemail automatically. You don't even have to talk, but it's just in there. And then after 2 days, I can send an email. And what if they interact with the email? There's different steps there. So that's really a helpful tool, especially when I'm sitting behind my desk at home a lot and not traveling. I really have to have that cadence. And I do have a small video as well. I'm not sure if I have time for that.
Yeah.
High Velocity Sales helps you lead your remote sales team and streamline your sales processes. Managers can easily get best practices out to their team by building a new sales cadence with a few clicks. Adding new steps to the process, like automated email sends, with templates to keep reps on point with messaging. They can define different branches of steps based on call results, or specific prospect engagements, like email replies. Sales reps can receive new lead assignments in their work queue automatically. And with all their tools in one place, reps can work through their prioritized to-do list more efficiently, scheduling an email to send at the right time, personalizing an email based on the context of the deal, or making a call using Lightning Dialer or your telephony system of choice. Call scripts make it easy to stick to the right pitch, and all activities are automatically logged in Salesforce.
Yeah.
I actually have a question received on that.
Okay.
So, looking at all this technology that's really helping you, so how were you helped by adopting really this technology? Because it's a really big change, if I can imagine.
Yeah, and there's a lot of new technology.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that we do regularly is actually training.
Yeah.
So really training, what are the tools, what are the available tools out there, and it is a little bit trial and error as well. When there's a new tool, we get training, we start implementing it, we start using it, and if we see the value, we continue using it. If there's no value, then we see if there's other tools. So I think a constant training is very important there, and it's also fun because then you can keep learning. And luckily, I think within Salesforce we use a lot of the digital tools. So I'm very lucky to be in this role, and there's constantly new innovations coming out, and we try to adopt that as soon as possible.
And what was your biggest challenge or hurdle in this for?
So, looking at the past years, I think my biggest challenge is again on the buyer side, is that the decision-making unit is becoming more complex. Maybe 10, 15 years ago, the decision-making unit was 2-3 people, and now at least it's 10. Yeah. Maybe sometimes even 15 people. And making sure that you talk to everybody and have a relationship with everybody. And that's also the involvement of the entire team. My manager has to be involved, a solution engineer, and they all build those relationships with those different people. And I think that's, especially looking at the future as well, that is also the biggest challenge that we have to tackle, to make sure that we understand the entire decision-making unit, all their expectations and their wishes, to make sure that we can guide them to a good decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very interesting to hear. And of course, this is also making a nice bridge towards Niek. So actually, Niek will talk a little bit more about how to overcome these challenges of salespeople actually helping organizations to get at the same level Salesforce is right now.
Yeah, of course. And maybe I want to take a small step back initially. Is that what we of course see is where previously, pre-pandemic, but even much before that, is that we also move more from a seller perspective and a seller-centric way of working as sales, is that you now are more in a buyer-centric way of doing sales. So really focusing around the buyer. And that is already quite a big change for quite a lot of companies. And it's even going to be more supported in the future, especially once we are moving more to a digital way of doing sales. What we foresee is that for 2025, roughly 80% of the deals are done via digital channels. So that can be either your service department, your marketing departments directly already doing some kind of sales. Of course, the commerce platforms out there, but also your field service employees who are out there and being able to do immediate orders, for example. And they are all supporting your own sales department. And that's really cool, I think, to see eventually on what is happening there. What we then see is that to move that a step further in deciding where you are as a company in your current state is that we have this octagon. I think it's a different slide actually. Yeah, there you skipped it. Yeah,
sorry.
One more. Yeah, okay. Well, talking about your current state, of course, it's good to define as a company where you are at the moment. Are you in a certain things? Are you new, or are you already really further down the line and really an expertise and leading there? And what the Gartner report also says, of course, in your maturity, in your CRM maturity matrix, and what we've changed to an octagon is to really give you a quick overview on where you are as a company. But then there's 8 of these dimensions where you really have to focus on, and what you can do as a company yourself as well already. Is, for example, focusing on your vision, your strategy, your key metrics, your technology, which is currently in place or not, and then deciding, okay, this is our current state at the moment. But then, of course, you have to move on to the next phase, which can be harder. If you've read the Gartner report, there's some tips and tricks in there, so I won't go too much in depth there today. But there are some tips and tricks in there on how you can get there. But of course, it's also where we as a company, as Nextview, can really and are really looking forward to helping our clients with. Yeah. So, for example, if we move to the sweet spot, there we go. Is what we tend to do is that we first try to define the challenge space. So we always start with people, because as mentioned earlier, we are in a buyer-centric way, or at least that's where we move towards to more and more. Once we've defined all the people's needs, so that's both your customer but also your internal employees, and making sure that they can cooperate and have all the information available where needed. Then look at that from a buyer perspective or in a business perspective on how your processes should run, and then the technology supporting it. Yeah. And that's, of course, where we see Salesforce coming in, but also things like data are super important. Your data needs to be available for everyone. So for your marketing, your sales, your service departments, but your data is coming probably from multiple systems. And I think Mark actually has an interesting approach on how you should look at data, if I'm correct, Mark. So not when you're trying to do your first implementation, should you look at your data as a starting point, or what's your opinion about that?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. So, my view on this is that I think it's important to get the data right, of course, and a lot of companies tend to focus on, when they think of the customer 360, some pushback we get sometimes is that, in fact, we have this master data management program going on, and we're trying to analyze, get all the data together in the right place. We're trying to clean the data, and all those things are, of course, it's important. But, it is also important to keep in mind that, perfection could be the enemy of good or even great. So, trying to get master data completely locked down, completely working seamlessly, that's an ongoing project. That's about ongoing governance. And that's not about holding on to initiatives, waiting for that to finish. So I think from my perspective, data, what we talk to some CIOs, and one approach they take is what they call these kind of golden threads of data. So things like customer ID or product SKU, or you have a few common elements that you say, these are going to be our standards, right? They might sit in different systems, but these numbers and identifiers, these are going to be common and unique. Everything else, you might have multiple addresses, multiple email addresses, different inventory lots that the numbers don't align. As long as you provide users an ability to correct data issues, that they see improvements going on in the data, then you reduce the kind of frustration with any sort of data issues or challenges in projects for people to adopt. So, the view we have on data is have a governance plan in place, right? Make sure you're addressing duplicates and data errors, but certainly don't stop customer-facing improvements to projects because your own data situation isn't completely sorted. Right. So that's at least our view. And I think you take this people approach that absolutely makes sense, Niek, right? So understanding the people internally, you don't want to frustrate them when there's data problems, but as long as you give them a path to correct it and to see those improvements going on, people tend to embrace that. And then the customer feedback, of course, when you start to see these improvements is an important contributor to making sure that those projects go forward.
Yeah. And then, Niek, is this also an approach by starting with the people to actually break down those silos? Because the data is scattered all around the organization. So from a data perspective, you need multiple departments and also multiple people then?
Yeah, definitely. It is the way, I believe. Looking at our approach and what we do, unfortunately, I didn't bring it with me today. But what we do is that we use a service blueprint in where we combine the customer's needs, the internal needs. So what do you as a person from different departments need at what moment in time during your whole process. So it's not just about the customer process, but of course also about your internal processes. And then map that to the technology. And that's how you can break through silos and combining and seeing at what moment you need what type of data over what departments and roles internally. So, yeah, definitely. Okay. Thanks, Mark, as well, indeed, because that is indeed what we emphasize as well as a company. And also, if you look at finding the sweet spot again, but then more to the solution space, is where we see what is desirable, what is feasible, and what is viable. And to define that sweet spot, of course, data is one of the key metrics in there where you need to focus on. Also looking at, for example, one of the things that we see happening in 2025 as well is that 60% of the deals will be supported heavily by things like artificial intelligence. Coming back to your first comment about the poll, where we discussed that larger implementations, or at least in perspective, what we see is that larger implementations work, definitely. But larger implementation doesn't mean that you have to do everything at once and everything from the start, but that you have to have that vision in making sure that what your end state is, and your end state will constantly change. So you will always go to the next step in your roadmap, in your future way of thinking, future way of doing sales. So that's something that we envision in seeing that you can start up with smaller things as long as you have that vision in mind. And that's what our approach really works with well. And also, according to the McKinsey report that Mark mentioned earlier, one of the things, if projects are being done via a design thinking way in combination with AI, for example, they are much more likely to be successful than implementations which don't use this type of methodology. Okay. So that was really cool to see. Yeah. Because we are actually practicing that.
Yeah. I have got another question. So is there a basic starting point then? If you have nothing in place.
Yeah.
So I think
of course, definitely
nothing in place, but starting with everything is not possible.
Good question. And that's of course where we or Salesforce has already been doing a lot of thinking, right? And that's also the benefit of the system. Once you turn it on, you immediately get a full set already of all the standards and best practices that Salesforce has, or at least quite a lot of them. So that's why we also do sort of a fit to standard approach, where we start off small, but still keep that vision in mind of where we can go and grow towards with our clients. So yeah, it's definitely possible to start smaller and scale up afterwards.
Okay. Okay, and then I have another one. So how do you prepare your organization for this people-driven way of thinking instead of process?
Yeah, also starting indeed with vision. I think that's still the most important thing to start off with and think about as a company. If you don't have a clear vision yet, then we're happy to help, of course. To get it in place, but making sure that you have the full picture based on the octagon we showed earlier, in how you can define what your current state is, and then seeing where you want to head towards to, and break that down between all the silos.
Okay. So thank you very much.
Interesting.
This was, again, for me, a very interesting topic, and a very interesting to hear actually how an actual user is going to working with these new technology trends and actually how you can implement it. So I want to thank you, every one of you, for your contribution to this. I want to thank you all for listening to our webinar. For our final call to action, please, at this moment, the Dreamforce to You is running, so very interesting content is being shown there, so please try to get aligned with that. Feel free to download the Gartner paper whenever you haven't done that. You can find it on our website. And again, if any questions occur, please reach out to the people here in this group. Many are familiar for you, so for this, I want to thank you very much and have a very good day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much as well, Sander.
Thank you.
Thank you, bye.